Growing up, my older brother, Francisco, Cisco for short, and I shared a bedroom. His twin bed on one side, my wood bunk beds on the other. My fondest moments from that room consisted of him and me, mostly him, I was 7, building a hammock out of a sheet. He'd tie one end to the top of the bunk bed, and he'd finagle the other side to the bed frame. Once he ensured I wouldn't break my tailbone as soon as I got in, we would stockpile pillows, blankets, and all 47 of my stuffies. Okay, maybe not all the stuffies, but a lot of them. Then I'd crawl into it ever so gently, remembering it was a hammock built out of a sheet, tied to a bunk bed and a bed frame, and feel nothing but freedom and protection. Freedom because I was swinging midair, and protection because of the cocoon-like feel of the blanket, sheets, and stuffies. And then the cherry on top. Cisco would tell me one of his fabulous bedtime stories. My favorite, the 3 Little Pigs. His stories would include explosions and catapults and smoke bombs and things falling on the big bad wolf and epic celebratory fireworks shows. Man, I absolutely loved my 14-year-old best friend, his hammock, and his stories. That was a snapshot not only of my awesome brother, but what our family life was like. Just like that hammock, our family environment was one of both freedom and protection. Inside our modest 2-story, 1,500 square foot, 3 bedrooms and 1 bath house that included stairs that too many people to count fell down due to their steepness and unevenness, one of my father's earliest projects, lived 6 not small people. My father was born and raised in a mud brick ranch house in central Mexico and immigrated to Chicago in his early 20s looking for opportunities not available back in Mexico. Similarly, my mother was born and raised in a small farming community in southern Illinois, and by fate, they met each other in the same working class neighborhood on the south side of Chicago where I grew up. They married and quickly popped out 3 boys. But finally, after 7 long years of parenting boys, they received perfection in the form of a girl who they nicknamed Andy, and now 39 years later, her friends call her Dre, mostly because they can't pronounce her name correctly. We didn't have a lot of money or space, but we were what I now call a high-quality family because of the model that was set for us. My parents' parenting practices centered around high expectations within the context of the warm and fuzzies. We were expected to earn the highest grades possible, or else our father would look at us and say, "You only cheating yourself." And Mom, she brought the warm and fuzzies. She always told us she loved us, even when she didn't like us. Nothing outside our house looked as idyllic as that hammock. Growing up in my neighborhood, I watched many of my peers who were being raised in low-quality families, turn to drugs and gangs before I hit high school. I remember my senior year, a guy I did judo with shot and killed a 20-year-old man a block from my house, all because he was wearing a baby blue shirt. I've often wondered why Fidel, Jose, and I never followed any of these seemingly self-destructive paths and defied Pew Research Center's statistic that Mexican Americans have some of the lowest educational attainment rates by becoming a physician assistant, a family doctor, and a clinical child psychologist. I got my answer in a courtroom, but first, a story about what landed me in a courtroom. It's April 1995. My 2 oldest brothers are away at school. I'm 11 and have my own room. Cisco's 18, living at home, and in the middle of a gap year. Our parents supported Cisco's decision, but they did not support the friendship he formed with a 23-year-old man at work. But because they valued the freedom to make our own mistakes, they only occasionally poked and prodded why this man had a wife and a girlfriend and multiple kids he was not providing for. I remember April 7th, 1995 like it was yesterday. It was the day my brother Cisco disappeared. I experienced an unnerving sensation in my chest that morning on the school bus. Ever seen the movie Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where the bad guy thrusts his hand into people's chests and yanks out their hearts? Yep, that about sums it up. But I did what any good Mexican does. I compartmentalized it and went about my day. After all, I couldn't cheat myself. I got home. Cisco wasn't there. The next week, the police were called. So much searching, misdirection and lies. Knock, knock. 2 police officers deliver the news. I remember a blur of words. Cisco's body, forest preserves, murdered. For those of you who have lost someone unexpectedly, you know the days following the news are a whirlwind. Funeral preparations, grief, staring at the corpse, praying it's all a practical joke, willing him to move, just move, please. He never did move. The next 2 years, court proceedings, the murderer denying responsibility, him being found guilty of first-degree murder and armed robbery. Finally, it's my turn as a 13-year-old girl to step into the courtroom and give the murderer who stole my best friend the what for. The DA motions. I slowly stand, walk past the defense attorney, murderer, and DA, and into the witness stand. The judge high above me to my right, waiting for me to start. I stare at the murderer. He looked down immediately. And for the next few minutes, I try to convey how his choices and behaviors impacted my life. I stop, I walk back and sit between my parents, my safe place. Court recesses, the door opens. All rise for the Honorable Judge Carmody. He sits, we all sit. The judge scans the room, pauses on us, and takes a deep breath. I am not sentencing this man to death, not because of moral or professional objections against the death penalty, but because this man had a rough life. See, the man came from a dysfunctional, low-quality family, one full of psychological and physical abuse, where someone abuses drugs and alcohol, suffers from a mental illness, and engages in criminal behavior. 5 out of the 7 adverse childhood experiences associated with a plethora of detrimental effects. And because of this, the judge sentenced this murderer to 80 years in prison, in which he only served 27. I sat there flabbergasted at the idea that the judge attributed this man's heinous act to a rough childhood. And right then and there, I had my never again moment. Never again would I allow this event to consume my life. Never again would I allow my brother's death to be in vain. That never again moment transformed into my life's mission of creating more high-quality families, to fortify families. To live out this life's mission, I completed 10 years of schooling and became a clinical child psychologist who specializes in the treatment of antisocial and aggressive behavior. While in grad school and reading the research, one idea synthesized. High-quality families create strong individuals, whereas low-quality families create weak individuals. which leads me to where I stand on the nature versus nurture debate. But first, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. It doesn't matter which side you're on. Either way, it's your parents' fault. All kidding aside, when it comes to the debate, I'm strongly on the nurture side. I don't believe the murderer was born. I think he could have been a stand-up guy who goes to his 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, speaks his wife's love language by bringing her Reese's Fast Break candy bars, and coaches his kids' soccer teams. But in order to be that guy, he needed to be raised by a high-quality family like mine growing up. One where the success sequence is modeled. First, you earn a high school diploma. Then you establish a career. Then you marry before kids. According to Brookings Institute, 97% of adults who hit these milestones in this order are not poor. Children raised in high-quality families where the success sequence is modeled have the opportunity to maximize their life instead of the thwarting effect of a low-quality family. Life isn't fair. We all experience injustice. Some are due to external events, such as your brother is murdered, or someone runs a red light, T-bones you, and shatters your life as you know it. And sometimes they're because of internal things, crap comparisons, such as believing, I should weigh the same amount I did on my wedding day 3 kids ago, or the all too familiar self-limiting belief that I'm not good enough, that manifests as the imposter syndrome. So when bad things happen to us, what do? How can we return to the hammock feeling of both freedom and protection? You build your fortress. The fortress I speak of has 3 sides: individual coping, relationship, and parenting skills. And today I'm going to focus in on the most important, and that's on the individual coping skill side. Develop agency. Agency is when humans act with intention. You're in charge of how you spend your time, energy, and resources. People need to know that they can act as agents in their own lives and that we're a hell of a lot more powerful than some would like us to believe, especially social media companies. A victim mentality doesn't serve you. It paralyzes you. You develop learned helplessness. You're like Seligman and Meyer's dog, just laying there taking shock after shock because you don't believe there's a damn thing you can do about it. There's always something you can do to better your life and the life of your family. Flex your agency. Tell yourself, so this happened to me. What am I going to do about it? The first part is acceptance of where you're currently at. It is not an acceptance that this is your fate. And the second part is developing a plan to live a high-quality life even though this terrible thing happened to you. That's one side of your fortress. You still have relationship and parenting skills. But if you can get one thing down, if you can learn to take agency of your own life, then you're on the right path. What am I going to do about this terrible thing that happened to me? What am I going to do about my relationships? What am I going to do about the way I choose to parent? And I have a choice. And you, audience, have a choice of whether or not you will be agents in your own life and create a high or low quality family. And it truly begins with taking control of your life and building your fortress. Continue to build your fortress higher and higher, because once you've built your fortress high enough, you become the third pig. It doesn't matter what's thrown at it. Ain't no big bad wolf able to blow down a fortress. I know this from personal experience, and now I want other families to experience the freedom and protection that comes with fortress living. And that's why in February 2021, I resigned from a tenured position. And for those of you not in higher ed, that's kind of a big deal. It was a job I could never be fired from, a guaranteed salary. But I felt so pulled and not so gently nudged to live out my life's mission of fortifying families and help others build their fortresses. I searched for the highest rooftop that would have me. Thanks, TEDxBGSU. And now I'm screaming, if you want to change the world, it starts with your family. Because if my husband and me create freedom and protection that comes with fortress living for our 3 kids, and we teach them how to build their fortresses, and they marry and each have 3 kids, then the ripple effects go exponential. And if we can model fortress living and inspire others to do the same, then more and more ripples. And maybe, just maybe, we can live in, our great-grandchildren can live in a society where an 11-year-old girl doesn't lose her best friend because someone had a rough life. My hammock story was 32 years ago. I still miss my brother. I still believe there was injustice that day in the courtroom. But what I now know with all my being is, I was handed my life's mission that day. And you know what? I not only honor and keep Cisco's memory alive by fortifying families, but by incorporating hammocks in all areas of my life, including the one along the pond of the house we're about to buy. From that hammock, I'll cuddle with my kids, and we'll create stories. Their favorite, the 3 little pigs. But instead of pigs, ours include aliens, elves, yetis, and Sasquatches. And my hope for you all is that you bring freedom and protection to your families and start your own ripple.